All right. And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. Today is going to be another fun episode as always. On today's video, we have Coop from Coop's Collection. He has a pretty underutilized YouTube channel. It's actually some pretty crazy returns. I'm sure a lot of you guys, if you are active in E4, if you're active in the E4 Discord, I'm sure you've seen his name before, but he's been around for a while, and I titled this video A Perfect Way. Pokemon is when preparation meets opportunity, because I will tell you what, Coop is one of the most engaged people in this hobby, and it really shows how successful he's been in this hobby when that preparation meets opportunity. But with that said, Coop, thank you so much, man, for coming on the channel. And for the people out there who may not know who you are, feel free to give them a little bit of your backstory. How did you get back into Pokemon? Stuff like that.
Yeah, well, PK, first off, thanks so much for inviting me on. It was great to run into you or meet you for the first time in Hartford this past weekend. I think I have a pretty similar story to a lot of people. As a kid, played the Pokemon games. First game was Pokemon Red on Game Boy. Chose Charmander. I'm more of a Squirtle guy now, so when I replay like Fire Red or something, I'm always picking Squirtle. But played the games as a kid. Had cards, not that I remember too well. I remember having like base set and fossil and jungle, but I think I got out of Pokemon cards before even like the Neo sets came out. I got really into Yu-Gi-Oh, not even playing the game, but like buying packs. I got really into Digimon and buying those packs. And then in 2018, so fast forward quite a few years, quite a bit older, I'm watching YouTube and got fed a Max Mofo video. Had never seen him before, didn't know who he was, hadn't bought Pokemon cards in probably 15 plus years, and watched this video and then watched him again the next day. And he was uploading like daily at the time, and just started watching him a lot. And I said, that guy looks like he's having a lot of fun. I was definitely influenced, and I went and I bought Pokemon cards on Amazon. I bought a bunch of GX and EX of those old promo boxes.
Yep.
So I bought like the Mega Scissor EX box, Mega Gengar box, like all those, and they were cheap. They were like 15
those are the ones that were on sale.
Yeah, they were like super like dead stock or overstocked Pokemon boxes. And got into sitting at my kitchen table just ripping packs. And I was sitting there, and it was funny because my wife was watching TV, and I'm like just opening Pokemon cards by myself, like not doing anything. And I was like, you know what? This would be fun to just share with people, kind of like I got, into it because I was watching someone else. And so started a YouTube channel just to show like, what am I buying? What am I opening? What am I sending to PSA? Cause I got into grading and just figured maybe no one ever watches it, or maybe some people just get a kick out of it and enjoy putting me on in the background to listen to me yap for a little bit. But then I found E4. I was actually in some of the like Reddit subgroups for Pokemon. I think Pokemon TCG or Pokemon TCG trades or something, because I was trying to find other people selling and buying Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember exactly how I came across E4. Maybe someone on Reddit mentioned it, or who knows, maybe I was just Googling like, where can I talk about Pokemon with people? And found my way there, and probably joined the forums in like early 2019 and joined the Discord and got to meet just a bunch of people. And that was actually a big reason why I started going to events. My first one was in Baltimore, and this was actually my second Pokemon event I've ever been to in my life.
Oh, okay.
So trying to get into it more, but yeah, that's kind of a bit of a backstory. I know I talk quick sometimes and skip over details, but that's kind of the start to where I am today as far as getting back in. I say back in because I did have cards as a kid, but really getting into the hobby probably that mid 2018 timeframe, and it's been downhill ever since, really.
No, I think it's been uphill for you, man. I've been watching some of your older videos, and well, first of all, if anybody out there is watching this, click on the link down below. It's Coop's Instagram. If you go through his Instagram, it is just you as fast as you can scroll, man. It's like impossible to get to the bottom. You have so many different cards in your collection, but one of the cards that I noticed you have a pretty lot of are all the Poncho Pikachus. Now, was that something that you just, when you first got back in the hobby, that you said, I'm going to start buying all these Japanese promos? Because it seems like you were going pretty hard at those at the beginning. And I was looking at some of your older videos. You had some crazy trades where you were trading Poncho Pikachus for like some, yeah, I think it was Gym Heroes, like the Brock and the Misty for some of those cards. And you probably look back on those trades and go, man, I wish I could have those back.
Yeah, who would ever guess that? What are they, $50 boxes or whatever
Yep.
some of the ponchos sold for? Yeah, when I got into it, I was collecting full art trainers. Shocker, right? Like a lot of people are now, in English, mainly because I thought it was so different than just like Pokemon. I was definitely like going after different Pokemon that I like. I've always been someone who I've never set goals when it comes to collecting, which kind of just keeps me all over the place. And if I like the art, I was buying it and I was grading it because grading was like $7 a
Yeah.
card at the time. And I was going through Ludkins, and that was because the prices were better and the timing was better. That obviously changed during COVID, which sucks. But
Yeah.
so I was buying everything I liked, and I came across the Mario and Luigi poncho. Well, I guess those are kind of ponchos, but the Mario and Luigi Pikachu cards.
Yep.
And I ended up buying only one set, which of course I wish I'd bought more now, but I got the boxes for like $300 for both of them from someone. And then I found the Team Skull one, which
Yep.
that's the only full art I don't have in a 10 now, because the one I sent twice got a 9 both times. But I bought
So
that box for, I think it was $80 on eBay. And then I never bought the Gyarados and Magikarp box. I bought the cards themselves, and I think I was paying like $60 for those in the Rayquazas, maybe $80 at the time.
yeah.
I remember I sent probably 2 sets of the Rayquazas, and I sent 2 sets of the Magikarp and Gyarados ones. And I thought they were really unique and really cool. Pikachu's obviously a fan favorite, and then him just dressed up as other stuff, especially Mario and Luigi. I will, to my grave, take those cards with me because they are my absolute favorite. Having those as a set of PSA 10s, the full arts and the half arts of those. But
Okay. So all 4 of them you have as
I do,
10s?
yeah. I've
That's
got
awesome.
the, because I opened, because I bought the box, the Luigi box and the Mario box,
Yeah.
opened them. I wasn't sure if I was going to open them or keep them sealed and send them to PSA, and luckily they all came back as 10s. So, excuse me, they're kind of sequential. I sent them to Ludkins in order, and I think they got shuffled up a bit, but I think it's like the full art Mario, little Mario, full art Luigi, little Luigi, and inserts that I got.
Okay.
But yeah, so I've sent all the ponchos, have them all in 10 except for the full art Team Skull, which I'll get eventually, but it's like, I don't even know now, 1,500, maybe close to 2,000. I mean, all the
It's
ponchos have just,
Yeah, it's crazy what those prices have done
yeah.
recently.
Yeah. And oh, I forgot and the Charizard ones I bought raw, so I didn't have the boxes for those either, but
Okay.
yeah.
But yeah, so when you first started going in and you started getting real hard, you said you originally went English and you went English full art trainers, which now the market for those trainers are finally catching up and it's going crazy. But I noticed a lot of your purchases, you were doing a lot of Japanese plays. Was that just something that you got in because it was, what was like the reason you went after Japanese, or were you collecting Japanese when you were younger too?
I wasn't when I was younger. I really like Japanese exclusives. I think a lot of people do. I think it's really cool to have artwork that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
More recently, some of the stuff that might be Japanese and Chinese exclusive. I've got the Guzma that was like way expensive in Japanese, but it's in Chinese as well. So I call it my knockoff, or my economically feasible version.
Yeah.
But for me, going after Japanese exclusives has always been something that I just like, the fact that that's the only way to get it, right? Whether it's the Poncho Pikachus, or I really like the Game Boy promos. I just finished getting, I've got the Lugia, the Mewtwo, and the Dragonite, and I just got the Mewtwo, which those are the 3 I kind of consider the trio. I know there's also the Meowth and stuff, but I just love Japanese exclusives. And then recently I've been buying Japanese E-Series holos, because I love that I can go buy a PSA 10, 20 plus year old holo from an E-Series set for like $120.
Yeah.
Whether it's, I bought a ton recently, but and some of them are more expensive. You've got Blastoise that might be $300, or for Alligator that's $200, $250, but a lot of them are really great artworks, like Magnemite or Kingler that are like $110. And I
Yeah.
look at that, and then I look at people are pulling a modern day full art trainer. What is it? Iono. That's like $1,200, and it boggles my mind because I know there's supply and demand. I know that's what's hot. That's what people want right now. But when I think about like what do I want as a collector, it's things that I feel like the art is really good, the history to the card is there, and I have leaned into Japanese more recently, and it feels like collecting is a bit cyclical where everyone kind of starts in what they know, which is I speak English and I read English, so I buy English cards,
Yeah.
and eventually get to that. I want to own kind of like the home version, right? Coming out of
Yeah.
Japan, coming from Japan, being designed and created in Japan. It's something just a little different. That's kind of cool. And the fact that you have to get it here from thousands of miles away, it's just something that adds a little bit of kind of cool flavor to it. And I've spent my fair share of time on Bai and middleman services hunting for what, person that's put something up on Japanese Mercari or Yahoo Japan that, maybe I can get a deal. Nowadays there's thousands of sets of eyeballs searching those sites trying to find the next best thing. But yeah, I feel like I've lucked out a lot in just I buy what I like, I collect what I like, and over time all of it has just done really well for me. So
Yeah. And one of the things I took from a lot of your videos is it looks like and you kind of just mentioned it there, you're looking all over the place. You're not just like just doing eBay. You're not just doing Mercari. You're not just doing Yahoo Japan. You're not just doing Reddit or Facebook. It seems like you're just doing everything. Like you got your feelers out, man, in like all these different like forums, different platforms. H- How have you found that those relationships are paid out for you? Because your most recent video was a absolutely crazy pickup you had for less than I think $700 you said in your video, and it had Shadowless Charizards in it. And the Charizard wasn't like PSA 10 quality, but still, it's still a Shadowless Charizard, bunch of Shadowless cards, a bunch of different like it looked like a lot of expedition cards were in there. But like, how do you find all these great deals you've been still finding in this crazy boom we've been in?
yeah, that's like what really keeps me going and what where my drive is I love finding local deals and then just spending hours like sifting through them. Going through all the bulk and randomly coming across 6 copies of the banned Misty's Tears or banned Sabrina's Gaze. I remember I picked up something that I pulled all the hollows out of the binder that I had bought from this guy. And then he had this box of bulk, and I went through every single card of bulk. And the very last card was a first edition Dark Raichu just sitting at the back because it's the secret rare, which is that
From Team Rocket,
83 out
yeah.
of 82. Yeah. And so he had just stuck it on the back of like a bunch of Team Rocket bulk. But for me, I post in a lot of like local like flea market groups, and whether it's Facebook Marketplace or that pickup I had recently was actually a post on Reddit in like my local city's like flea market Friday posting. And I just always post those. I'm like, hey, I'm a collector. I buy Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't know nearly as much as Yu-Gi-Oh as I used to. And a lot of times people will reach out and be like, hey, I've got stuff that's just been sitting around. I would like to say I try not to lowball people, but at the same time, I'm not gonna inadvertently just go overpay on things. I feel like if both parties are happy, this most recent deal was probably very much in my favor. And it's like a balance, right? If someone is completely oblivious to the value of things, like how much of it should I be like kind of helping them out,
Yeah.
So I'm usually the first one to throw out a dollar amount, and then I'll let them kind of negotiate if they'd like to. But yeah, the recent one I picked up that had like the Shadowless Charizard, Shadowless Alakazam, a bunch of Expedition, like the Expedition Mew, Mewtwo, a couple of Expedition Alakazams. I looked at it and I was like, there's no way I can sit here and make this guy an offer of like $2,000
Yeah.
without him like asking for it, because it's just not financially a smart thing for me. And I'm trying to like get a good deal, and I know we all are, but at the same time, it's like I'm not going to sit here and offer him, $50 or $100.
Yeah.
So
I saw that collection had it was all over the place too. It wasn't just English too, and it was a bunch of Japanese in there and a bunch of like the Sabrina's Gengars and stuff, like
yep,
the band artwork with the gravestone in the background, which
yep.
English was always robbed of that artwork, right? Like the Japanese definitely got the better artwork. But yeah, that collection was awesome. And if anybody wants to have a little bit more context to the conversation we're having, just go on Coop's channel. It's the first link of this in the description. He's right around 1,000 subscribers. So guys, we have 66 people watching right now. If all 66 of those people go, click on the link real quick, give him a subscribe, we'll get him to 1,000. But his most recent video is that buy. So that'll give you guys all the context you need. But one of the things also, Coop, you've been doing a lot of like PSA returns. And obviously I'm a Pokemon channel. That's mainly what I talk about. But you've been doing some pretty like hardcore Dragon Ball Z returns too, man. And
I'm a big Dragon Ball fan. So the modern card game Dragon Ball Super is based off of kind of a mix of like everything that Dragon Ball's ever done. There's been like half a dozen different Dragon Ball. That's probably a little much, but around half a dozen different Dragon Ball card games, whether it was the Panini Dragon Ball Z or other DBZ sets. But Dragon Ball Super has really grown on me. I grew up with the anime, watching the show. I think a lot of people did, and watched Dragon Ball Super for the first time maybe 2 years ago and watched the whole thing through. And I think the art is phenomenal. The card quality is so good. It's so easy to get tens, and that's such like a fun thing to be able to just get a bunch of cards and basically know going into the submission that these are probably 90% plus going to come back as PSA 10.
yeah, especially coming from Pokemon when you don't get that feeling all the time.
Oh yeah. And then there's also the Japanese arcade game, which is Super Dragon Ball Heroes, which is really cool. It's like this arcade machine where you get cards and you put the cards on the top of this like almost scanner bed, and the machine looks at the cards and then turns those into like 3D avatars that you then use in the arcade game.
Oh,
so it's kind of like, it's almost like a modern day Yu-Gi-Oh. You know how in the Yu-Gi-Oh show they used to put their cards on the table or on their wrist thing, and it would like materialize, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like that, but all of the Dragon Ball Super cards are usually based off of what was released for the Super Dragon Ball Hero. So it's very similar to the fact that Pokemon Japanese cards are often released first and then in the US, but they're two separate card games for Dragon Ball, with one being an arcade game and one being an actual trading card game. But a lot of the art is duplicative between the two. So
and I was watching some of your return videos, man. Some of the pops, you were owning like 25% of the pops. Like,
oh yeah,
it was BGS.
Yeah, so BGS seems to be like the go-to for Dragon Ball because it is so modern, it is so good quality. There's a lot of black label hunters. I know the guy we met last weekend would probably be all over that. What was it? Black Label Crazy Asian?
Black Label Crazy Asian was his name.
Yeah. So a lot of collectors in the Dragon Ball hobby are sending to BGS, getting those, those gold 10s, getting those black label 10s. I have never sent to BGS. I probably should. I just bought some Dragon Ball cards that I'm debating to try to like do the whole BGS, maybe get a black label thing. But when I started sending Dragon Ball cards, I went to PSA because my entire Pokemon collection's PSA, and I like everything to be the same. And so I didn't kind of want to mix between them. But yeah, some people weren't grading Dragon Ball when I got into it. I was sending a lot of for anyone who's not been exposed to it, there's some rarities around special rare and secret rare. And those are kind of the two highest rarities, with secret being the best. And I was sending like $5 special rares to be graded. And no one was grading $5 Dragon Ball cards.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I have, one of two or even one of one on some. And it's actually gotten a lot more popular over the last few years. And so my monopoly on the PSA 10 population of Dragon Ball cards has gone down, but I still have a couple like 1 of 10 or even some of the promos I sent like 50 of, and it's like I have 50 out of 80, and it's just like because no one else is sending those things, right? So did I freeze or did let me see. That could be me. I'll post in the YouTube chat. Oh no.
Oh, there we go. We're back.
I couldn't tell if I froze or you froze.
Yeah, that's all right. We're just having some internet connection issues, but we're good. We're good.
Yeah, so I owned a lot of the pop for a lot of Dragon Ball cards for a long time, but I think a lot of the pop may be in the BGS sphere. So
Yeah. I think if I do this, it won't freeze again, hopefully. All right. Yeah, sorry about that, man.
no, it's all good.
But I think we're good now. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more. You mentioned Beckett. What do you think about these Beckett plays people are doing right now? Because it seems pretty apparent at this time, like for at least for Pokemon, Beckett was always extremely like tough to get black labels. But with a lot of these modern cards lately, it seems like maybe Beckett has either changed their grading scales or became a little less lenient. What do you think about that as being like a potential play for Pokemon? And you mentioned you never sent a card to Beckett before. I'm the same way. I never sent a card to Beckett, but I'm definitely starting to seriously consider making that play.
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, I would probably look at like what sort of cards have gone to Beckett in the past, right? If it was the sports collectors, if it was older Pokemon cards, I would have to make the assumption that just the quality is not there for black labels. And ever since I'll just say COVID and people have really gotten involved in modern, whether it's sports, whether it's Pokemon, any card game you can name, the quality of cards today is just, well, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth, but it's usually a lot better. There's
Yeah.
sets that have sucked, right? Where they dulled the blades on the printer and
Burning
just went to town.
Shadows.
Yes. Burning Shadows was the bane when I was trying to get those full art trainers like Wick
Yeah.
and Guzma and all that. But I would say that most modern day products are going to have quality that just far exceeds what we've seen sent to places like Beckett in the past. And so my hypothesis would be that the reason we're seeing more black labels isn't necessarily because Beckett has changed their scale or their rigor. It's just that we're seeing better cards go to these grading companies, and we're seeing so many more cards graded, right? Not necessarily just at Beckett, but just across the board. When we're looking at millions of cards a year graded, that might be right. I'm making things up on the fly, but if we're seeing millions of cards a year graded, and we're still seeing a 2% black label rate, we're still going to see, whole number wise, much more black labels just because of the volume, right?
Yeah.
I'm not someone who's necessarily interested in like the black label game. I'd never buy one for myself. I'd sure as hell sell one, right? If I ever got one. I don't know if anyone has seen Pokemon Flying Master PFM from Discord or E4. He's a mod and an admin, but he made a video a while back that he kind of goes into his view on the amount of accuracy you would need in order to truly be able to designate between a black label 10 and not a black label 10 when you've got 4 subgrades and you can have a 10, 3 10s and a 9.5 in any combination of those 4 subgrades, and the difference between 3 10s and 9.5 and 4 10s, and it's just it's tough to justify that someone looking at your card has that level of accuracy.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would ever pay 10 times the price of a PSA 10 for that opinion, right? It's someone saying this card is a 10 10 10 10 and not a 10 10 10 9.5, right? And is it 10 times the price? Is it 10 times better quality as
Probably
far as the
not.
card goes than a PSA 10? If someone else wants to say, yeah, and I'll give you, 10 grand over a grand, like I'll take it every day of the week.
Yeah.
But again, and I've graded tons of cards, especially in the Dragon Ball space, that I probably could have sent to Beckett and made more if I was going to turn around and sell them, because one, that's what people in that side of the hobby want, is they want Beckett usually.
Yeah.
And they're cards that probably had shots at a 10, a black label at some point, just because they are much better. I'm never going to send Pokemon there because I collect PSA, and if I'm collecting Pokemon, that's going to be PSA, and especially older stuff, just because I've also heard Beckett below like a 9 or even below a 9.5, like it starts to get really wonky on how accurate it gets. And so I don't know. I'm probably just a super PSA fanboy. And I'm not sponsored by PSA, but I've liked their service. I've sent cards where they probably could have gotten lower. They probably could have gotten higher, you name it. But if I
Yeah.
look at all the cards I've ever graded, and I've graded like 95% of my collection myself as opposed to buying a PSA slab.
Yep.
Um, I I just feel like it's been a good service and good quality for me, and I've never questioned like over time, has this been a good decision for me, and have they done a good job grading my cards? So
Yeah. So let's talk about that because you were grading and stuff. And I this is a question I love to ask everybody every time they're on the channel is walk me through 2021 for you
chaos.
because you mentioned you started to get back in 2019. And when you go back and you look at what you were buying, you did go a little bit harder than I would say the average person did. You definitely went down that rabbit hole, at least that rabbit hole for knowledge. You were starting to go down the E4 rabbit hole, learning all these threads, learning about nichier cards, maybe that most people weren't looking at. So by the time end of 2020, early 2020 rolls around, you've already have a pretty solid collection and you have graded a lot of those cards before that crazy hype period happened. So kind of just walk me through your experiences during 2020, 2021, and what your thought process was like just from kind of the beginning where you saw it, that hype ramping up to where we ended up reaching.
Yeah. I would say the biggest change was I went from having to scrutinize over the cards I was sending to PSA to basically being able to send anything and everything and not be fearing that I'm going to waste my money.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there were times before COVID where I'd be looking at like a first edition for alligator from Neo, right? And I'm like, if this gets a 9, I've wasted my time and I have to sell a 9 and maybe I break even. And then COVID hits and I could send, any hollow from any WotC set, and regardless of the grade, I'm probably going to make money, especially
Yeah.
with grading fees not having like jumped and the backlog hadn't quite, caused people to wait 24 months to get their cards back. So
Yeah.
that was the biggest thing for me is I felt like I could really just send anything off to be graded by PSA. But at the same time, I couldn't find a lot of things to send because so many people had entered into the hobby coming into 2020, 2021. I mean, store shelves, everyone experienced it. You couldn't find product, whether it was at Target or Walmart. I started to find, I think the sleeper was Barnes and Noble. That was where I was able to find a lot of stuff a lot of the time, especially when new releases came out. I think seeing like the YouTube videos and the Instagram reels of like the chaos in Targets and Walmarts of people just rushing to clean out. I bought sports cards for the very first time because it was on the shelf and I knew I could turn around and sell it. I did it. I flipped sports cards. I've never opened a sports card pack, but I bought sports cards at retail price and turned around and sold them to someone on Craigslist because they were willing to pay $300 for something I paid $70 for, whatever it was. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But I think so many people coming into the hobby just led to so much anticipation of like, what's the next big thing? What's the next set Pokemon's going to release with the Charizard that we can all try to hunt and sell to everyone else that wants Charizards? But for me, I feel like COVID was not fun. I mean, obviously it wasn't fun, but I think from a collecting standpoint, I lost a lot of what I really enjoyed, which was finding things I like from an art perspective, finding things I enjoy having, sending them to PSA for $8 a card, getting them back in 65 days, and building up my PSA collection while interacting with people, on E4 or on different Pokemon, Reddit groups or what have you, right? And it turned into
Yep.
this, I'll call it like the whatnot hype beasts and the people who are just trying to make money all the time, right? Which there's nothing wrong with being in Pokemon as like a business venture and looking to, I know plenty of people who are in Pokemon full time as like, I buy, sell, like that's what I do for a living. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I don't know how to phrase it in the sense of like, there's still a way that rubs me the wrong way with like some of the, like just the folks who just sowed discourse throughout the hobby, and whether it was just buying every single piece of Pokemon product they could get their hands on and then just scalping the heck out of it, right? But honestly, 2020, 2021 for me, I kind of took a step back and I was like, what am I going to just focus on that I can control? for my growth as a collector, because I can't stop people from doing those things, and there's nothing I'm going to be able to do to like change that, right? So
Yeah.
I started to look into what can I be learning about in the hobby, whether it's getting more involved on like E4 because it is like a huge knowledge base, and learning about, I learned during COVID, like how do people order directly from Japan? Like I'd never used Buy before, right? So I learned about middleman services to directly engage with sellers in Japan. Just learning about more sets that I've never been exposed to. I mean, when I stopped collecting as a kid, I mean, I'd only been through 3 or 4 sets, right? The earliest ones. And so
Yeah.
I knew nothing about Diamond and Pearl cards. I knew nothing about even like Skyridge and Aquapolis, like was after my time. And I just learned about everything that was out there, right? So that I could start to focus in on, once I have a broader base of what's available in the market, not that anything was available on store shelves, but what was like available in the hobby, I start to at least be able to kind of hone in on, okay, I know I like Japanese promos. I know I like full art trainers, even though that's modern stuff. I'll always like base set and jungle and all of that. But I think for me, COVID was really a bit of a wake up call to kind of spend some time and figure out, like, don't be caught up in the hustle and bustle of like everyone trying to get the newest stuff. I saw people freaking out about pre-orders for whatever new Pokemon online, product was coming out, and trying to get it and crashing the site, not being able to pre-order, or people on Facebook, canceling pre-orders because they oversold them and they only got allocated 17 boxes out of their 500 that they ordered. And so, I just didn't get involved in all that. Right. And I just kept looking at how can I make incremental steps in my collection, because that's what I am first and foremost, is a collector and wanting to build up my collection first and foremost. So I try to not let it phase me, but it's tough to be in a hobby that's kind of running around with its head chopped off a little bit with how many people were involved in doing all that stuff, that I don't know. I kind of watched from the outside a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I think I did more than anything else from 2020, 2021, and I talk about this a lot on my channel, is I felt that my collection lost, I call it like collection identity. I ended up just getting so spread out. And then when you start selling stuff, like you start selling pieces of different parts of your collection, till eventually it was like, imagine, like, I think of my collection as almost being like Swiss cheese because there were so many holes in it at that point, and what I had left ended up just having no identity to me. So one of the best things I did was I just scaled back on everything, and I said, "What do I really care about right now?" Because you can go that super collector route and say, it's in the name of the game, right? Like, gotta catch them all. You can try to do that, but in reality, it is next to impossible. And then definitely if you want to do that on the highest end, and that highest end is condition rarity, and then starting to go after PSA 10s. I mean, there's what is it, 40,000 modern English cards we're up to. You're not going to do 40,000 modern or just 40,000 10s,
Not with that
So
attitude, you're not.
no. So what I did was I just scaled back. Like I had a decent collection in like Shadowless and first edition base, and then I still had my childhood binder growing up. And I said, what do I care about more? Do I care about these graded cards, or do I care about my childhood binder for, base set? And that was an easy one for me. Cared
Yeah.
about the binder, got rid of all the graded cards, and I never looked back, man. And I'm still to this day like happy for that. I still have like all my base set hollows as a kid graded, and I do have like a few shadowless still in like decent grades, but for like commons, uncommons, I moved all that stuff out the door, man. And that was one of the things I felt that I didn't have, was I didn't really have the identity there anymore.
Yeah.
And then I still am going after my personal goal, is I'm trying to get a complete PSA 10 master set of Skyridge. And so that's just commons, uncommons, reverse hollows, rares, hollows, like you name it. So 144 cards in the set, in non-hollow plus reverse, so that's 288, plus the 10 crystals, because you got 5 crystals, 5 in reverse, 5 in hollow, so that's another 10. Then you got the 32 hollows, so then you got to add the 32 hollows to it. It's been a lot, man.
Yeah.
But like that's one of the things I wanted. Like that's what I wanted one of my identities to be, is to get that complete master set. And
Yeah.
it's been a long uphill battle, man.
Hey, that's the thing, is collecting is a marathon, not a sprint, right? Cliche, but still, it's like
I
you'll
say it all
burn
the time.
yourself out if you're like, I got to get this master set. I mean, it's fine if that's like your main focus, right? But if you're trying to like just grind and grind and grind to do it, you're probably going to get burnt out. Because, like you said, especially your goal, right? That's a long term. I mean, unless you're a multimillionaire, right?
Yeah,
That's
long
a
term.
long term goal for you. And I feel like that's what I need too at times. I've got a bunch of cards that I probably don't need and don't have a connection to. And I probably just need to do like some collecting spring cleaning and figure out what does my collecting identity really look like? Because I definitely have cards where it's like, these are ones I really get a lot of joy from, and others it's like, I remember grading this and I have a connection to doing that activity in the sense of where I found this card and grading it. But it's like a $40 PSA 10. And it's like, do I really need a bunch of less than $100 slabs? Maybe, maybe not. But that's kind of where I was starting to set a cutoff, is anything less than $100 in value, I probably, unless it's like something super sentimental for some reason,
Yeah.
probably don't need to collect, or a Steelix card, because I love Steelix through and through, and I'll always collect Steelix cards. But yeah, and that's something that I've struggled with a little bit too, especially I have a lot of appreciation for set collectors, or even species collectors, because I'm not one of them. I don't have any binders. I do all graded cards. And usually I'm just like, do I like this artwork? Do I like this Pokemon? Awesome. Can I grade it and not lose money? Right. And that's usually
Yeah.
what I've been doing for years now. And most of the time I've gotten lucky and done really well. Sometimes, I'll have a bust of a card, or it's something that I paid $15 to grade. It's worth $30, and it's going to probably stay $30 for the next 20 years. But yeah, I kind of wish I could hone in on something specific. I think the closest thing to that has been buying like E-series Japanese hollows, which I'm not saying I'm gonna complete like Win from the Sea or Town on No Map first, or even eventually, because some of the hollows I don't like the look of, right? And I'm not gonna go spend money on something I just don't like, because it has to be a part of my collection to complete a set. So
Yep.
I'll probably never complete a hollow set of a set, or even a master set of anything, just because that's not something that's ever really interested me. And I don't like having to buy something I don't want just for the completeness. But I see the joy and the value in doing that for people, in the sense of, I have each piece of this set or this collection. So
Yeah. So do you have any big goals though? Like besides those Japanese hollows, is there anything like you're really got your eyes set on right now and you're like, okay, this is next. I need to check this off my list before.
yeah, and but I've been saying it for years. So probably my number one is PSA 10 Japanese Crystal Nidoking. And I could have bought it probably multiple times over if I just stopped buying a bunch of other stuff, right?
Yeah.
I buy, $150 card here and a 200 card there, and all of a sudden I've spent $4,000, and I could have bought a Nidoking and a half, or however much. I don't know how much it's going for now, but for a long time it was kind of around that $2,000 mark. So I keep saying it. It's been on my wants list for years now. I think the 2016 Festa is something that I would like to get eventually, but that's like getting close to 10,000, I think, at this
Yeah,
point.
that
So
thing shot up really fast in the last 2 years too.
yeah. So those are two. I do want to eventually get the full art Team Skull Pikachu, just because that would probably be one of the few things I would complete, which is like all the full art Poncho Pikachu cards.
Yeah.
And then there's a Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball has some signature cards, which just has like the voice actor's signature printed on it. And I have all of those except for Frieza, or Golden Frieza. And so that's a Dragon Ball want to eventually get to complete that set too.
So that Team Skull Pika, you said you've submitted yours twice to this
I
point,
did.
right? So
Yeah.
you submitted it, you cracked, and then submitted it again. So
Yeah.
do you see the issues on the card, or
I didn't at the time. When I was grading those ponchos, though, I was relatively new to grading. It was probably only my second or third submission ever that those cards were in. So when I looked it over the first time, definitely thought it was a 10, came back a 9, looked at it much more closely, like through the case. Because I was like, if I see something, I'm not going to crack it. I'll sell it as a 9. If I don't see anything, I will crack it. And I didn't see anything, so I cracked it out. Sent it again, came back a 9 again. I still to this day don't think anything was wrong, but maybe at the time, because I was newer to grading, it was like a centering thing that I wasn't catching.
Yeah.
But I ended up selling it. I do have the half art one, the second card that came in that box. And I still have the box too, but that's the one I'm missing. So
Okay. So I thought you still had the 9. See, I didn't
no, I
know.
sold it, and not for much. I'm sure I sold it for like $80
Yeah.
because at the time that's what it was worth. Yeah.
Ugh.
No, I don't even have the card anymore. Yeah, which stinks. So total gap in my set for the ponchos.
Yeah. So when you look back on some of your big sales or some of your good sales, are there any that like stick out more than anything else, or any of those sales that you wish you could maybe take back?
Yeah, I think some of my, and they're not even like huge regrets, but a couple come to mind. I was buying, there was a Reddit, like buy, sell, trade group. I can't remember the name of it. Maybe it was like Pokemon TCG trades or something. And, a couple years ago, it was probably early on in my collecting, someone was selling a first ed Neo Lugia and a base set Charizard, just unlimited, and both of them were like near mint. Like I think they both had shot at 10s, maybe not the Charizard.
Still, if that Lugia hit the 10, especially with that crazy price that it hit,
Yeah,
which never hit
and
again, but
the guy wanted $125 for both of them, and I passed because he sent me some photos, and I thought I noticed something like on the back of the Lugia, and I was so picky at the time. I was not buying anything I had the slightest doubt would get a 10. I was like 10 or bust. And so that was one that I wish I hadn't passed because I would have graded it. It probably would have got a 9, and I probably would have just held on to it because I would have thrown it in a box and been like, all right, this is a 9 pile that I got to sell eventually. And
yeah.
that would be worth way more. And then and then another purchase I passed on was an English Crystal Nidoking for $600, and I passed on that. And I wish I bought that. It's since then I've switched to kind of wanting it in Japanese. But that's another pass that I wish I bought. And then the final purchase one was in a local, when I lived in North Carolina, a local, not antique shop, but kind of like a rummage shop. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
He had a base set 2 booster box, and he wanted $1,800 for it. And at the time, that was a little more expensive than the market. And then the next time I went in, he was up to wanting $5,000 for it. And then the next time I went in, he had sold it for $8,000. And I was just like, why didn't I pull the trigger? It was a booster box of a Pokemon set that, but again, I was someone who's like, it was market value or more, and I want deals, right? I want to pay less than market. I want to get a good deal on something. And so pass all that purchase. And then I sold, as far as like a sale, I wish I had it. I had all of I think it was called the Rainbow Rocket Pikachus. It was Pikachu dressed up as Giovanni, Lysander,
Oh yeah.
Getsis, all of those, right, on these little half cards. And I had the set of that I spent maybe $120 on all of them and sold them along with, I had the Japanese full art trainer of the corresponding boss. And the only one who didn't have one was Cyrus at the time, because he didn't get a full art until probably in the last few months. And I sold that whole set for maybe $300 to a guy in Singapore. And those are all really expensive now too. So
Yeah. But yeah, it's fun to look back on them, but sometimes when you're in the moment, you don't know. And it's the same thing like today. Think about some of the sales a lot of people are doing today. Some of these sales might age fantastic because if this is a more bubblish type period, a lot of these prices could retrace. But if we're not in any sort of bubble, it won't retrace. And then maybe some of the sales we're selling stuff at today in 2023, we'll look back at them in 4 years and say, well, that was dumb. But I also hate the whole bubble argument, because I don't think anybody ever says Pokemon was ever in a true bubble. And I think that's where people will always misconstrue words and be like, if you say bubble, you mean everything's in a bubble. And that's one of the things that always kind of drove me crazy with 2020, 2021, because there was 100% things were in bubbles, you know? Like Jungle First Edition Pikachu and Eevee selling for $1,000 each in a 10. That's a bubble. Base set booster boxes reached up to greater than $30,000. That's a bubble, you know?
Yeah.
But like there was a lot of stuff during that time that like wasn't in a bubble. So I just hate the blanket statements, and people love to blanket statement the bubble conversation. It's like, no. Like even for modern stuff, full art vivid voltage Pikachu selling for $1,500. That was a bubble, you know?
Yeah.
So it wasn't just the vintage stuff. That was some of it was in a bubble. It's some of the modern stuff too. And I think that's the hardest part right now is just navigating like what is potentially overpriced versus what is underpriced. And then doing that hardest thing, especially right now today, is what is underpriced. And then when it does start to increase in money, like when do you get out of this stuff? How are you able to start like navigating that? Have you been trying to like play more the speculative market and like finding that undervalued stuff and like holding it, waiting for it to appreciate, or how you've been doing that? Because like I said earlier in this video, is a lot of your purchases have been full art trainers, whether you meant to buy full art trainers or you just got super lucky, or if it goes back to the title of this video where preparation meets opportunity, you know, like which one was it for you?
I think for me, it was luck meets opportunity. And it was, I liked full art trainers and I was buying them because, and whether I have good taste or not when it comes to Pokemon cards, I think a lot of people end up liking a lot of the stuff that I do. And so my philosophy has been buy what I like, and it's probably unlikely that it's not going to resonate with a lot of people in the hobby. I'm not someone who's really tried to speculate a lot. I usually try to look at what's tried and true and then look for undervalued, like sellers who aren't pricing their cards at like where I think they should be. Right. Well, I say it in the sense of like, if I go on Bai or Macari Japan, right, I'm looking at anything that I feel like is undervalued in the sense of it's a good price for it, right? And I don't think that I've ever sat down and said, if I look at a card as a market price, right? Let's use the card you got signed this last weekend, Cosmic Eclipse, the English one. I don't know any Japanese set names. You'll have to forgive me. But
Dream League was the Japanese version.
Yeah, the Dream League Pikachu character rare card, right? I've never sat down and said, I think that even though I can go buy 100 copies of this at $3 a card, I'm going to do that because I think it's eventually going to be worth $10 a card or $15 a card, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's rare for me that I go out and buy a ton of copies of cards. Usually the way that I've kind of been able to grow my collection at no cost to me or limited cost to me is I find a card I want to grade, I buy 2 or 3 copies, I send them all to PSA, I keep a 10 and I sell the rest. And that usually helps me get a new PSA 10 into my collection for free, because usually I'll get another PSA 10 out of the 3 that I send, and then I'll sell off, those 2. I've either made a little bit of money or I've at least covered my cost of buying all the cards raw and grading them. And that's just a way that I've grown my collection really at as limited a cost as I can, and made, some money on the side to go out and buy a couple of things that, I didn't think I'd be able to find in gym mint condition to grade myself or something like that. So I haven't been super speculative. I haven't even really been too much into like trying to buy a bunch and sell a bunch, but it naturally happens, right? How else can you really be involved in a hobby that can be a money sink, right? If you're not selling tons and tons of stuff, you're spending money to buy things. And so it's a little give and take, right? And I don't get as much joy out of like the business side of it, but it's something that I do just because, it helps me kind of grow as a collector. Whoops.
Yeah, and I run into that issue a lot too, is just sometimes it's as simple as just staying liquid in this hobby,
Yeah.
like it's easy to tie up money pretty quick. Yeah, and you mentioned it, like sometimes you accidentally nickel and dime yourself, like you wanted that Aquapolis Nidoking, the crystal, and yeah, you could have just saved up a couple bucks and bought it, but you end up nickel and dime yourself with like $150 here, $150 here, like you mentioned. And I've been feeling that that's been going on a lot for me lately, and especially like grading fees this last month. grading fees, the blame is always on you. It's never on like the cards, right? Like, because grading fees are fixed, you know what they're going to be. But the problem is I've just been getting so many cards back right now. I've been paying out a ton of grading fees, and I just been dragging my feet to all hell, man. Like, not listing anything, not doing much. And I look at it, I'm like, what am I doing, man? I got so much money tied up on multiple copies of certain cards, and sometimes that can just be the tough part, is just trying to stay liquid. And I've talked about this in videos before. It's staying liquid and sometimes an illiquid hobby, you know?
Yeah. And those grading fees, especially if you went through middlemen, which I did a lot in COVID, where
Yeah.
you pay up front and all of a sudden I've got thousands of dollars just out of pocket without the cards,
Yeah.
and out of pocket for like 18 months. And so that really hurt during the like really brutal COVID backlog of PSA. And I think that led to a lot of these, I'll use the term bubble, but kind of these inflated, like singular prices on a lot of cards. I think the EV is a great example of, no one was grading EV comments right before COVID. All of a
Exactly.
sudden, all these people enter the hobby. They remember Jungle. They remember all these sets, right? They start looking for these cards. The one guy who graded 10 copies of EV, right, years ago, starts listing them, right? They're selling for ludicrous prices because there's no population. Then
Hmm.
everyone and their mother sends their EV cards that are sitting in their binders or sitting in their closets. And I feel like the PSA backlog, in my opinion, caused a lot of these weird, I don't know if it was people were speculating or the supply was so low because it was these weird cards that collectors pre-COVID just weren't interested in, that caused these weird spikes.
Yeah.
But I do think that backlog caused a lot of what some people kind of refer to as this weird COVID bubble for a lot of stuff. It's that the supply and demand got so out of whack, and the supply was so pigeonholed by PSA just not having the scale for kind of what happened, that all of a sudden you see, $500 EVs and you see all this stuff. But for every one of those where sellers are making out like bandits, you've got buyers on the other end. Especially, I think of that black label Hidden Fates Charizard, right? That sold
Oh,
for
the first sale.
10,000,
Yeah.
and now it's down to like maybe $1,000 or something. So it's a risk, right? You can say, I don't think there's going to be a lot of these in the future, and so I'm going to pay this price, and you can get fleeced, right? Like this guy who spent 10 grand on a black label has. Or you can turn around and you can get lucky and pay, $100 for a PSA 10 Poncho Pikachu that's worth $2,000 now, right? I mean, you never know, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's SM Pratt who says, I got two balls and neither are crystal, right? So I can't see the future. I'm not gonna, and I'm super risk adverse, so I like to spend my money in a way that I don't fear that it's gonna come and bite me in the ass. And so I usually go for more of the sure thing of like, I know if I grade this card, it's going to be worth more in the future, or it's going to hold its value and that sort of thing. But I'm not someone who's like, all right, this modern day full art trainer that's going for $1,500 right now, I'm going to buy 6 copies. I'm going to get PSA 10s in all of them, or I'm going to send them to Beckett for black labels, and I'm going to sit on them because they're going to be worth twice the price. I
Yep.
think if you want to strike, you got to strike where the iron's hot for a lot of this modern stuff, because, I might be wrong, but I don't think there's staying power for some of these multi-hundred, over $1,000 cards that have released in the last 6 months, right? There's zero history that they're going to stay like that. I mean, Moon Brianna has been really popular. I think that has seen a really good price trajectory, but I don't know if it's just like, people will say because China's collecting now that has spiked a lot of cards up. It almost feels like I'm in crypto a little bit too. People will come up with any reason that prices are going up or down, right?
Yeah.
India's going to ban crypto, so prices are going down. China's gotten involved in Pokemon, so prices are going to go up. There's 8 billion people on the planet Earth. Who knows who's breathed the wrong way that's causing a card to spike in value? So
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to guess. And like I said, I've got a full-time job that is my focus from a monetary perspective, and this really is a hobby for me. And while there is money to be made, that's not something I've really dedicated a lot of time to personally. It's really been kind of a passive, how can I grow my collection in like the most economically feasible way for me without spending every dollar of discretionary spending I have available to me.
So let me ask you a question, because you said that this is obviously a collecting hobby for you, but you talked about going after the PSA 10s, and you mentioned it when you first started grading, like it was 10s or bust for you.
Yeah, I'm a
And
label collector.
I always love to hear why do you like 10s opposed to 9s? Like I know the answer for myself, but like I am curious because obviously when you are talking about growing your collection, 9s are going to be the easiest way to go, and it's definitely
Yeah,
going to be the cheaper route to go than to go the 10 route.
yeah.
So,
I wish I could go the binder route, honestly. I mean,
yeah, exactly, yeah.
you look at PSA has, I think for sports cards, they have something called like eye appeal. I don't really know exactly what they mean by that, but I assume it has to do with like, does the card look good, right? And so I wish for me, I could just say, this card looks good. I want this card. I'm going to get it and I'm going to put it in a binder, right? Or I'm going to have it in a top loader on a shelf or something. When I bought my very first PSA card was the CD Charizard promo. I bought it for $55 on eBay. And when I got it and I got it in my hand, I knew at that moment that I would never be able to not collect PSA 10. I'm still picky when it comes to PSA 10. I don't just blindly go buy PSA 10s. I still look at the card and make sure like the quality of the card itself is something that I don't see whitening on the back where I'm like, how did this get a 10? Like this probably should be a 9. But I'm also not buying 9s that look like they could be 10s.
Yeah.
And that's definitely like, I'll call it a vice of mine where I have to have the perfect copy. And people on E4, people on different Discords will probably say like, okay, you're a label collector because you don't actually care about the card, you care about the label that's on it. And whether or not people value the opinion of a company like PSA to say this card is gem mint or not. I like to balance between, yeah, I'm not buying PSA 9s. I'm holding on to some that I've graded myself. Like I've got a first edition Dark Dragonite PSA 9 that I graded that I don't know when I'll get another copy of that. So I'm holding on to the 9. I've got a first edition Dark Raichu PSA 9. And those are a part of my collection because the hobby landscape has changed. If this was pre-COVID and I could easily get another Dark Raichu first ed for $25, I'd probably sell the 9 and go hunt raw copies to grade as 10s. But I don't know. I feel like for me, it's kind of like a minor OCD of I've got to have the 10 because that's the best copy I could have. Thankfully, I'm not a black label hunter because that would probably drive me insane if I had to have black labels of everything. And that would cost me every dollar I've ever earned. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I wish I could collect 9s and be happy, but I don't see myself doing that and knowing that there could be a better version out there that I could own instead.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And trust me, I find myself doing that internal debate all the time, like 9s versus 10s, because you sell the 10s, like it frees up, it opens up so much more for you, especially if you're going to go 9s, especially if you want to go like bigger goals, master set goals. It's like 9's easy. Not everyone could be Zach Gem at Pokemon,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, it gets tough. But
it's funny
so
though, because so I see you've got like a Super Mario video game on your shelf there. So I've gotten into grading video games too, and I don't have to have the best copy in
yeah,
that hobby. For me, I'm fine with for VGA. For anyone who doesn't know the scale, it goes from 0 to 100, maybe not 0, maybe like 40 to 100. But the minimum grade you can get to get what they consider a gold label, there's gold, silver, and bronze, is an 85 plus. And if I get an 85 plus of a sealed video game, like I'm good. That's all I have to have. I would
yeah,
say that's probably like a PSA 7 in the trading card world, but I'm not collecting PSA 7 cards. So I don't know like the difference between why do I have to have a PSA 10 of a Pokemon card, but I'm fine with like 5 grades below perfect on a sealed video game. But I am because I lean more into the eye appeal in the video game where it's like the box looks good, the seal looks good, it's got a gold label, 85 plus. It doesn't have to be a 95 or 100. But then I'm in Pokemon. It's like I could look and say, okay, this card looks good. It's a PSA 9, but it looks really good. Why can't I be happy with that? I wish I could.
yeah.
Because it would save me a lot of money in the long run. But
Yeah, I saw one of your graded games. Did you grade Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2? Did you?
I do. I got a 75, which is not good for a hard case game. It's on my shelf because no one's really interested in it. But yeah, Tony Hawk's Underground was like one of probably my favorite Tony Hawk game of all time. for sure.
Okay, so are all the games you're buying, are they all like sentimental? That's what you were playing as a kid?
Yeah, I've got a list of maybe like 30 games where it's like these all have like core childhood memories.
Okay.
Pokemon does, but those games have gotten way outside like a price range I'd ever be comfortable spending. But it's like, yeah, it's like Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color games, it's some PlayStation games. But everything, it's like I played it growing up. Um, I would never go out and buy, well, I say this, but I probably don't have any interest in going and buying a video game because it's like good value or valuable if I haven't played it, because that just doesn't resonate with me. It's like a very different thing than a Pokemon card, which I didn't own as a kid and am buying now. The video games are definitely something that's like I want it to resonate with me, and an experience that I had for sure.
Yeah. So I did ask the chat. I opened up for some questions to the chat, and Shadow Matt 321 says, if you guys, so the question for you, if you could start collecting today, but with your knowledge you have right now, what would you start collecting? So I guess that would mean if you had to start from scratch. So you had nothing, but you still had all the knowledge of Pokemon that you have, sets, trainers, Japanese, buying cards, sourcing cards, doing you name it. You have everything you have is just you're starting your collection now. Where would you start?
Yeah, I think for me, I probably stick with the recent like focus on Japanese E series hollows. I think they're really good. I'll use the term they're good value because I really enjoy the art. I think they're really great sets. I think the Pokemon that are on them are ones that I like. And that's kind of I think you and I are probably on the later stages of like when we were involved in the hobby originally.
Yep.
um so I, grew up with Gen 1, right? I'm a Gen 1er versus people who their
Same.
first game was Diamond and Pearl or Black and White, right? So a different set of Pokemon themselves probably resonate with us than they do with someone whose starter was Oshawott or whatever, right? So
Hmm.
these older sets have older Pokemon because the newer ones didn't exist, right? Whereas people who got into the hobby or got into Pokemon in general at different times are going to have different views on what do they want to collect, right? And so for me, if I had all the knowledge I had today and had the same experiences, I'd still probably be looking at older sets because those are the ones that I grew up with and really enjoy. But I'd probably be much more privy to looking at stuff on like Bai and what's coming out in Japan, what sort of promos can I get access to, because I really like those as well. And those usually do economically really, really well, right? There's probably no Japanese promo exclusive that's ever done less than like, you know, 50% increase in price or what have you.
Yeah.
Now it might not be in a 3-week time frame, but there's probably not a lot of Pokemon cards besides for like buying at that peak of COVID that have ever like decreased in value. So I think for me, there's not a lot that would change, except for I'd probably try to lean a little heavier into some of the Japanese exclusive stuff.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that because my answer would be very similar. So I'm not a Japanese collector, but I do see like the opportunity that's there in Japanese. So I would definitely be buying raw Japanese cards right now because especially when it comes to raw Japanese cards on eBay right now, we're just living in a golden age of Japanese sellers selling some pretty nice cards if you know what you're looking for. So I would probably like pick up a lot of those Japanese cards, grade them, and then sell them and then use that money to, buy the English cards I truly want. But, I've been seeing sellers constantly selling like a lot of like Nintendo EX timeline cards, a
Mm.
lot of Diamond and Pearl like level X's, like some really minty copies with cards that historically always had low pops. A lot of these pops are starting to increase gradually, but like there's a lot of opportunity there right now today. Now, does that opportunity stay around for a year, 2 or 3 years? I don't know. But like in the very short term, like I've seen a lot of opportunities right there because and you mentioned it earlier and a lot it's always talked about, but like if you're a lot of your knowledge is on more vintage stuff or older sets, to go the English route, it is very tough to get those tens. Where at least with Japanese print quality and card stock and everything, like you still have a chance. 9 or 10s, that's still in your wheelhouse. Where to source, Watsy tens is next to impossible, unless
Yep.
you get super, especially like for higher end cards, hollows or stuff like this. It's like good luck, man.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
But
I think
yeah,
at the end of the day, like if you're not buying things that you enjoy and you're not buying things that resonate with you as a collector, everyone gets in the hobby for different reasons, right? Some people want to just collect, right? They don't care about selling, they don't care about getting good deals. They pay market, they pay above market because it's a card they want. It helps them complete something. There's a
yep,
people that have a mix of that, and then there's some people who are like, I'm in it for the business. I don't care as much. Like I'll collect on the side even, or add some pieces. But my main goal is like I'm buying, I'm selling constantly. So feel like at the end of the day, if you're getting into the hobby, you've got to decide what am I getting into it to do, right? Am I getting into it to try to run some sort of business where I'm buying and selling cards? Is it I want to do that kind of to help grow my collection, or I'm just enjoying Pokemon, I'm buying cards, even I'm just going to Target and opening packs, right? Not everyone has to have 1,000 alternate arts in a binder, right? It's okay to just buy a couple packs from Target every few weeks and just open it up and collect the good cards or even all of them, right? And have a binder of whatever I don't even know what the newest set is, Scarlet and Violet, or I know
yeah,
what just
probably
got
evolve. Yeah,
announced, Obsidian Flame is the newest one coming out. So if you want to just go out and buy Obsidian Flame when it comes out, do that, right? And have some fun with it. But not everyone has to be like Logan Paul and buy 6 first ed booster boxes and wear a PSA 10 illustrator around their neck with diamond encrusted
yeah,
whatever. So
yeah. But no, back to the question. Like, if I had to do it today, like that would be what I would have to do to maximize, like to start really collecting. But that's what I would do.
yeah.
But I do think it's interesting that we both kind of went towards the Japanese route, and I don't even really love Japanese. So, uh, Namp90 asks, "What's Coop's favorite Pokemon?"
Steelix by far. I'm a huge Steel type fan. When they came out in Pokemon Gold and Silver, I just thought it was awesome. I love big resistance sets. So like Steel and Rock are two of my favorite types. But Steelix definitely my number one. I like Metagross for Alligator. I like Haxorus as kind of a more modern Pokemon. But those are some of my big ones. So I try to get most of the Steelix holo cards I can. That's like one of the few species cards I collect. But yeah, that's definitely one of my big ones. Is that big metal snake boy? So
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. This is kind of this has become a meme question on my channel, but what I asked this question in a live a couple back. It was like, if 10-year-old Coops walks up to the ice cream truck in 1998, what ice cream are you buying from the ice cream truck? And the reason why we asked this question is because I feel like you could learn a lot from somebody by what was the thing that they bought from the ice cream truck growing
so
up.
I would buy the it was like a strawberry oh gosh, what was it? It had kind of like a coating or a shell of like a strawberry with like dots or something, and then you
Oh,
kind of bit into it. It had like a
like
vanilla ice
strawberry
cream.
shortcake.
Yeah, exactly. The
Yeah, yeah.
strawberry
Okay.
shortcake. So that
Yeah,
was
that
definitely
came
my
up.
go-to.
All right. That's a good answer. And
Yep.
yeah, they have like the strawberry shortcake, and then also like the toasted almond was the same, but just different flavor. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was either that or probably like Sonic the Hedgehog head with the two gumball eyes.
Yes, that's a great one too. Same with the Ninja Turtle one.
Yep. Yep.
um, so Super Saiyan TCG said, Coops, do you collect Dragon Ball Z Score too?
I don't. I have not collected any of the older, like pre Dragon Ball Super stuff. So Score, Panini, all that stuff. I like the art. I think it's really cool. It's very like 90s looking. I like kind of the vibe of it, but I haven't gotten involved. I don't even know like the rarities or anything like that about it. But I've seen a couple people with some of the nicer like hollows of that set. So
How's your Dragon Ball graded collection going? Are you not trying to do Master Set, are you?
no, for a long time I was just sending any special rare I like the art of, any secret rare I like the art of. It is very much like all over the place. It's been really slow lately. I haven't bought a ton of Dragon Ball Super, which is the English stuff. I bought about $2,000 worth of the arcade game Super Dragon Ball Heroes from Japan, all raw, all individually picked off of Macari, one card at a time. Took me forever. But not a lot of shops like that you can access have Super Dragon Ball Hero cards that you can just buy. So you kind of have to go through like a Macari or Yahoo Japan. So bought a bunch of those and graded them. I think I got like 56 out of 58 as PSA 10. So the quality's there. That's why I've been sending to Beckett, but it's been slow on the Dragon Ball front. I haven't been buying and selling a bunch. Because like I said, I get a ton of value as like those local pickups. So like that recent video I posted last month, that was like my most recent pickup. Like that's really what drives me, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of. And so if no one's answering any of the postings I put on Reddit or Facebook or Craigslist or whatever, then my drive is kind of stagnates. But I've been getting into more of like the signing events and stuff, which has been really awesome. So
do you have those cards close, the ones that you did get signed?
I do. Let me grab them real fast.
Yeah.
And I've got my one from Saito as well.
Okay. Yeah, so Coops, the way me, oh, excuse me, I got a call. And so the way me and Coops met was at the Hartford sign-in event. And yeah, I sat down, I talked to Coops for a little while, and I was just like, I like Coops a lot. I like his personality. He has a super positive attitude. And I was like, I need to get him on this channel ASAP. So
who?
You. I was just talking about how we met at the sign-in event.
Yeah, so I got to start off with Ken the interpreter. I got a Ken original signature here. So for anyone who hasn't been to any of the events, Ken is a Pokemon company employee that has a really good relationship with Overload events, specifically Alec, who runs those with I think his mom and maybe sister. That might not be accurate, but Ken comes over from Japan as the translator. He's been at all of the Overload events that I've been to. I think he's been to all of them. But so I got him to sign a card. So I got for Ariga, I got the Archie and Maxie. I'll show them one at a time. It's a little easier to see. So both Archie and Maxie translate into, so Maxie is Maxie's hidden ball trick, and Archie is Archie's trump card or Archie's ace in the hole. And so I got the Pokeball on both of those because I think they go really well with like what the card is about. And again, full art trainers. And actually these two I don't have as PSA 10 in English because I wasn't able to find like good enough quality ones.
Can you show the Pokeballs too?
Oh yeah.
Like yeah.
Oh, where's my camera? Here we go.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool how he put it in his hand, the Pokeball.
Oh yeah. So he put that one there. And so I know I watched your interview you just did. I'll show the other one too. But you mentioned asking to get like the lightning bolt on the Pikachu one. So I asked for him to do like the Master Ball because he had a pink marker, and I said, can you just do like a pinkish purple instead of the red? Then he wasn't having it. He didn't. I don't think he deviated from the options at all, like color, extra, anything. So because I thought it'd be cool to have them as Master Balls as like their trump card or their ace in the hole. So those are the two I got. And then I was in Baltimore and I got a Saito for alligator Delta species.
Yeah,
and then
I really like the drawing you did too.
I also got my a box signed.
Yeah, so at the signing events you can do cards, but you can also do, like he said, boxes. You can also do magazines.
I took the sleeve of the Mario Pikachu box.
Oh, that's cool, man.
So he drew the Mario Pikachu, which is awesome. So I am after this event, I am the biggest diehard Saito fan because first off, he signed for hours and hours, and he would draw anything. He would whatever Pokemon was on the card, on the box, whatever, he was drawing that Pokemon. So props to him. I know things kind of got cracked down as the events went on and they got better from like a logistic standpoint, but man, Saito was an absolute goat when it came to sketching and it came to just willingness to stay. Because I was on one day, and I mean, he signed for 8 hours all day long, and then the panel, because the panel at that time was 5 cards and 35 people, and it went until like 3 in the morning. And he was.
Were you in the panel?
I didn't. No, I wasn't. I didn't get any of the panels, unfortunately. I only got through the general queue on one day, and so yeah, it was chaotic. I don't know if you were there at Baltimore, but it was
I wasn't.
chaos. Yeah,
I've heard the horror stories though.
So
So Mr. Walrus has the next question, and it's a good one. I think so. He wrote, question: should collecting be attached to emotion or just task slash collect or task slash checklist? So for me, it's a combination of both. Like collecting is a both emotion and it's also a task checklist sometimes. But what do you think? Do you think collecting should be more about emotion or just checking a box?
I think I think collecting at its core is an emotional thing. I think the reason I collect is because it brings me joy and it makes me happy, right? Which are two very strong emotions. But I think emotions can get in the way of being able to progress your collecting goals. So if you want to set goals for yourself, your emotions can get in the way of accomplishing those. Let's look at the Nido King I have as a goal, right? And my emotion of wanting to get a good deal on this card and wanting to buy that card have gotten in the way of actually checking off getting the Nido King. But if I had a checklist and that said next on the list is to buy a Crystal Nido King PSA 10, and I'm not allowed to buy any other Pokemon card or any other TCG card until that's done, I would be able to accomplish those things.
Yeah.
So I think you're spot on. It's a mix, right? But I think at its core, I think you can be a collector and collect with just emotion. I think being void of that, I'm not sure what you're doing, because without emotion, I don't think it's collecting, because I think collecting at its core has to be emotional. So
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. It's you can't have one without the other in a
right.
way, and I always say that too. Like if people are just in this for without emotion, I can't see how it would be fun,
Yeah.
Like I look at other non-Pokemon TCGs or like sports stuff like this, like I have no passion for it, I have no emotion. The thought of going as hard into another TCG as I am Pokemon without that emotion, it's just it it sounds like a punishment in a way, you know?
Yeah. And I don't want to try to define what like a true collector is. God, air quotes. Um, but I think if you are void of emotion, right now, like I'm void of emotion if I'm buying stocks, right? I don't care. Well, like if I'm investing in something, right? I try not to have an emotional component, right? Because it's what task can I accomplish from like my financial journey, right? What are my goals that I'm trying to accomplish when it comes to retirement and these things, right? And if you're doing those sorts of activities within the Pokemon hobby space, the question becomes, are you collecting or are you investing and trying to leverage a hobby that other people collect in as a business venture and as an investment vehicle, or what have you, right? So
Yeah.
I think it just comes down to like, are you collecting, yes or no, or are you trying to accomplish something else? Because that something else could absolutely be taskless of, I'm going to buy X, Y, and Z because then I'm going to sell them on eBay for, A, B, and C dollars, and then turn around and buy this booster box and then sell and buy this, and have a path of activities that you feel are going to get you to a certain place. But yeah, I think for me, like I collect because it's fun. I collect because it brings me joy to see what I own, to hunt out things, to do these activities within the hobby that, going to these signing events and meeting people from online that I might have known for years, right, and never met, except for going and wanting to have fun and enjoy these hobbies and that sort of thing. And I don't think you can do all that and just say I've got a task list that I'm trying to
Yeah.
accomplish.
And
So
and especially when you just said the key word when you go to events, right? Like when you're going to events, to be a to be void of emotion at an event would be an almost next to impossible thing to
yeah,
do.
I'm here to get a signature. I'm going to stand in line silently and not talk to anyone.
Anyone, yeah, and not make friendships, not do anything, but
Yeah.
yeah, that would be impossible. So we've been talking about graded cards a lot tonight, but we haven't talked at all about like sealed product and if you have any
Mm.
sealed product, because John asked a question in the chat. He says, have you all talked about the Charmander ETB? And he's talking about the brand new ETBs from that were just uh Obsidian. What's the name of the new set? Obsidian something?
Obsidian Flame is coming out, right?
Yeah.
Or was announced.
So the new ETBs have Charmander artwork on it. So that's like the newest set. But are you doing anything with sealed product?
Not intentionally, but again, this is like, I bought things I thought were cool. So I've got like, I've got a Cosmic Eclipse ETB. I've got a Unified Minds ETB, Shining Fates. I've got Evolutions. So I've got maybe like eight ETBs that I've got sealed. I've got a sealed, what's her name, Nessa, that Japanese box that has 2 booster boxes in it.
Yeah.
But other than that, not a ton. I've got a couple of sealed like Dragon Ball things. I've got like they released some collectors volumes which have some promo cards in them. I bought a couple of those. And then I got some Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. I really like Yu-Gi-Oh Ghost Rare, so I bought like a couple of the what are they called? Ghosts from the Past boxes. But I don't seek out a lot of sealed stuff. I don't have any like Pokemon booster boxes. One, because I have no self-control, and 9 times out of 10 I want to rip open and see what's inside of them.
Yeah.
And then I've got a Fossil blister pack, and I've got a graded PSA 10 base set unlimited Blastoise pack that I got on PWCC's first auction that they had on their site, and got it for like $380. So I got really lucky on that one.
That's graded in a 10.
Yeah.
So Nap90 says, what's Coop's favorite Steelix artwork?
Oh gosh. So I've got that's tough. I feel like it's mine might be Jasmine Steelix from Versus. There's also the E-Series. Is it first of all, I have to admit, I'm so bad with set names. I don't know if it's Aquapolis or Skyridge or
Aquapolis.
Skyridge.
Is
it Aquapolis, where he's like laying on the ground? I really like that one. And then I actually, for a modern, I really like the Steam Siege. I think Full Art Steelix EX is the best thing to come out of Steam Siege. And I think that Steam Siege has value as a set because of that Full Art Steelix.
Yeah. No, the Aquapolis might be my favorite though. So
yeah, I love those. And that's actually bringing up Versus, like those are a bunch of hollows I want to get eventually, because they're Japanese exclusive, even though they're set cards, right? That entire set of hollows, and the art's great. There's so many good arts. There's actually 2 Steelixes in that, Bruno's and Jasmine.
yeah, and English always was robbed of Versus. That's like one of those. I mean, sure. If you want to go super niche down the rabbit hole, we got an English Versus from Tropical Mega.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know what I mean. Like, we
not
were
really,
robbed.
but yeah.
Yeah. Unless you are Charlie Herlocker or Gembit Pokemon or Rusty TCA Gaming, like maybe you probably don't own those cards.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I saw someone asked about the Dragon Ball God Rares. I think the God Rares are interesting. I liked the Vegeta, but other than that, I haven't kept up with the most recent sets. For those who don't know, God Rares were like a rarity above Secret Rare that they released, and it was like they're all going for like $1,000+ because it's kind of one of those like one in a case or one in less than a case, one in every 3 cases or something like that. That it's really tough to pull them. So, someone asked why you don't like modern.
That's like became a meme on this channel. Like there were some people said like I don't like modern for, I don't know.
I'm just glad they got rid of the Rainbow Rares. I think that the alternate arts was like the best step they can make in modern.
Yeah.
And most of the alternate arts look so good. I bought all of the oh gosh, again, sets, whatever the Japanese that had like the Charizards, it had the Zorora, is that how you pronounce it?
V-Star Universe.
Yeah, like all those alt-arts, and they were cheap. I mean, they're $15-$20 or less. And so
I saw your return video, and I think in your video you said it was like 56 cards, and your 10 rate was preposterously high.
Yeah, it was like 90% or something. Yeah, it was really good. I think I only got like 3 9s, and the rest was
so you
10s.
got 3 9s out of 56 cards. That's that's insane.
And I didn't even really pre-grade those. I just bought them off of Yuyute, I think is how you pronounce it, and just stocked up on all the arts I liked. And then I like quickly looked over them. Like if there was significant whitening, I wasn't going to send it, but I would say I only pulled out like 2 or 3 of my purchase that I didn't send a PSA. I just, again, modern quality is so good. And that's another, push on why people are kind of chasing those black labels today versus, 4 or 5 years ago. But
Yeah. And chasing that black label. So do you think that like modern condition just being so good, do you think like for the future though, that nines in a way just kind of become worthless?
I think
Or
for modern day cards, absolutely. It's tough because if you can go buy a card from anywhere that hasn't been put in a kid's pocket and it's going to get a 10, what are you really paying a premium for?
by getting
Uh,
that nine?
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a 9, it's like I can just go get another copy. It's when we look at like older cards, the reason that there is value in 9s and significantly more value in 10s is because it's so difficult to replicate going out and getting a raw copy or going out and getting another chance at a higher grade, right? Whereas if I have a 9 in the newest sets full art trainer, why would I want that when there's 10,000 raw copies I could go buy one of and probably get a 10 instead? So I do think modern day 9s, they're just not going to cut it, especially years down the line. Because if you start to look at, I'm not someone who goes and like checks pop reports that often, but I mean, if you start to look at pop reports for some of this stuff, like these cards have thousands and thousands of copies of PSA 10.
Yeah.
And yes, the demand is there, right? There's thousands and thousands more collectors or investors or whatever you want to call people that are in the hobby. But yeah, I think for modern today and anything released going forward, one, they're printing so much of it, and two, it has such a good chance at a 10 that anything lower than a 10 is just I don't necessarily see, of course, as I don't collect 9s in the first place, right? But especially like I don't see the value in them. Whereas older sets, they do have that value because it is so much tougher. There was such lower print. The print quality was worse, right? So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is interesting because in a way, nines were always, I mean, the ideal situation for grading a card if you're going to sell it, like you grade a 10, you make money, you hit a 9, you break even. That was always like best case scenario on a lot of cards. But
Yep.
we could be moving into this time of modern where it's, yeah, you grade a card, you hit a 10, you make money, but we could be getting to the you hit a 9, you break even, or worst case scenario. I mean, not worst case scenario, but more likely scenario is you start losing money, you know?
Yeah. And that's how it was pre-COVID. I mean, like
Yeah.
I said, for even first edition Neo Hollows, I was looking at it and going, okay, if I spend $9 to grade this, and or I could sell it raw for 20, right?
Yeah.
If it gets a 9, it's a $35 card. Okay, well, I'm going to sell it on eBay. I'm going to lose 13%. I'm going to pay $4 to ship it. All of a sudden, I should have just sold it raw, right? And I mean, that I feel like that's really what modern is today. Most cards you're not gonna make money, or you're maybe not even break even grading it in
Yeah.
a 9. But there's still the potential for 10s that, a lot of modern too, even in 10s, it's like $40, $50 card. So it's like, all right, if I spend $15 to potentially make 20, there's definitely risk there, but otherwise it's free money and everyone should send everything to be graded. So
Yeah. Honestly, man, I've been looking at a few 10 sales, especially 10 sales at auction, and you start to look at the cost of the card raw plus cost of $15 grading for some of these, and I'm like, there's no margins even at 10s on some of
no.
these. I mean, you buy a $10 card, you grade it for 15, that's a $25 card, and the PSA 10 sells for 34, sometimes
Yeah.
29.99. It's like, oh man, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, I sold a Japanese radiant Alakazam. I sold it for $26. So I lost almost $3 to fees. I shipped it for probably $4, maybe $3.75 if it was closer. And I paid $2 for the card, right? So
Yeah.
that was barely making a couple bucks. If it had gotten a 9, I can't sell 9s of some stuff for the grading fees. I have some Yu-Gi-Oh cards when they did some reprints that I sent, and they got 8s. I sold one for $12, and I was like, okay, well, I'm taking a bit of a bath on this because, it's $50 to grade it. And I bought the card raw like for $7 or $8, right? So it's like, yeah, and that's how it should be, right? I don't think you should necessarily just be able to send anything and everything and there not be any risk involved in it. But if you are collecting and you don't care and you just want a graded card, then you can't lose, right? If you think there's at least enough value in owning this card graded, whether it gets an 8, a 7, a 9, what have you, like that's the difference between I'm grading this for me and my collection versus I'm grading this to hopefully turn around and sell to make a profit. It just comes with a different mindset that you got to kind of get into.
Yeah, and you mentioned V-Star Universe and great, buying all those cards raw and grading them, and like when it comes to modern, and you mentioned it too, and a lot of people have mentioned it, like we are living in this amazing time of alt arts and everything. When you open a pack, more or less every card in that set is worth it to send, and how long can that possibly continue to last? Like it's lasting right now. When you look at V-Star Universe, and more or less any big hit, like you can send it and grade it and potentially make money, but can that last forever? Can that last into perpetuity? Kind of questions like that. And the question is, I just don't know.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, even on eBay now, I look at some of my V-Star because I sent, when I bought a bunch of that, I bought 2 or 3 copies. So I've got at least one of each alt art at one point listed on eBay. But it's becoming where so many people have done exactly what I've done that it's just undercutting, list a card at $49.99. A week from now, I've already got to drop it to $44.99. A week after that, it's down to $39.99. And all of a sudden, I can't even sell it for $35, right? And so I get back into okay, I spent $15 on this. What did I spend to get it over from Japan? When I look at the cost of the card plus splitting the shipping costs across everything, plus the buyee fees and all of that. And all of a sudden, it's become so competitive because there's so much in volume of available cards. The population is there that it's not, I mean, you always have your hits, right? Charizard, Mewtwo, like I sold one in like 15 minutes. I listed it and it sold for $95, and that was like, okay, I paid $20. I graded for 15, easy money, right? Whereas, the Deoxys, I just sold one for $32.99, stuff like that, where they're starting to get a lot of availability on eBay, and it's just going to be, dollar by dollar, undercutting until all of a sudden it becomes a card where it's like, can I send this and risk getting a 9 and I'm going to lose $10 on versus I only have a $5 upside? For me, it's just, why would I go through with that? It's like a waste of time. So
Yeah. And that's where I find myself a lot, because that is in a way like rocking the hard place kind of stuff. Like, and people say like, why do you spend time sourcing like this more nichier stuff? And a lot of people say, and including myself, is like, in a way, like the riches are in the niches. And part of that is because there's not the competition there too. When you only have a card that maybe, you look at some of these reverse hollows and stuff, and you've been talking about e-reader sets, your Expedition Aquapolis Skyridge. You look at the reverses in those, the 10 populations are sometimes single digits or low double digits. Low double digits could be between 10 and 30. Like when you have a card like that, you're not fighting, you're not doing that constant undercut and race to the bottom, because eventually more niche cards like that, like you keep like price cut, and eventually like that card just gets bought up, and then your card's the next lowest, so
yeah, I think the niche stuff too, it comes down to like, what's your time frame? I mean, there's some people, I don't know if you've seen Pokemon Steven. He was in E4 Discord for a while. Goes by Pokemon Steven on YouTube, and he's got like his own site, but he grades so much, and this is like his full-time thing. He does PSA graded cards, buying and selling Pokemon, but he grades because he wants to get PSA cards out into the market, right? He doesn't care what the card is. I mean, he grades anything and everything, and it's awesome to see. I mean, he's got thousands and thousands of PSA cards, and just to see kind of what he's sending, what he's getting back, and for someone like that, it's like they're making the money on like the good stuff and the niche stuff, and then they're helping supply cards that may not otherwise be graded and stuff. So I'm rambling at this point, but he's someone who I've watched a lot of and actually got to meet when I went to Australia, and definitely worth checking out his channel and watch some of his stuff. But he's someone where grading is like, he doesn't go through the mindset of, is this worth grading or not? Because he does so much volume and sells so many good cards that he's able to kind of take the hits on some of the other stuff just to help get those cards out and graded and into collectors' hands that may not have had a chance otherwise, which is really cool.
Yeah, man. But I told you we would go for an hour, and I kept you for an hour and 35 minutes. I'm sorry.
This has been a lot of fun. I've been happy to stay. So this
Yeah,
has been
man.
great.
No, this has been fun. I love talking Pokemon, and when I met you at that signing event, I was like, Coops got it together. I was like, we need to get Coops on this channel right away and like get his thoughts out there. But yeah, before we go, man, do you have anything that you want people to go to? Because in the description of this video for everybody out there watching, we have a link to both Coops' YouTube channel and a link to Coops' Instagram. You could reach out to him on Discord too. He's super active in the E4 Discord. Have you found yourself like pulling back from E4 a little bit? Because, and with the new platform moves and everything, like, to be honest with you, man, I barely even look at it anymore.
Yeah, I checked this. I'm not as active. I was never as active on the forum. I was always much more active on Discord. I also work from home. So I'm always kind of around my computer and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't really, I go on E4 every couple of days just to kind of see what's trending, like as far as posts go.
Yeah.
And then I kind of keep an eye on the Discord. I haven't really been that active lately. I don't know. I feel like when I first got into it, I was like all gung ho about like, I got to meet all these people. I got to have all these great conversations. And I haven't really been that much. I'm in, a handful of different Pokemon type of discussions and Discord channels where it's like, I feel like I've got all these different groups of people that I can engage with at any point. So I haven't necessarily been as active on E4, but I feel like I'm always lurking. So don't talk too bad about me publicly on E4 if you can avoid it.
Yeah, man. But no, this was a lot of fun, and if you're ever up for it in the future, man, I definitely want to have you back on the channel.
Yeah, this is awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. It was great to meet you in Hartford, and really had a lot of fun getting to chat. I don't really do this or haven't really done this. All my YouTube videos are really just like, what am I buying? What am I selling? What am I collecting? So really looking forward to the next chance to kind of have like a long form discussion. And if anyone else is watching that likes to do this sort of thing, I'd be happy to just shoot the breeze with you as well. But no, it's been a lot of fun. I'm glad you could expose me to a different format of enjoying the hobby.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I'm so impressed just by your YouTube channel, and I looked at it was like 200 videos throughout the course of just years on YouTube, just showing all these returns and showing all these submissions, and it's pretty awesome watching the growth too, like seeing you change as a collector, as a hobbyist. Like one of your very early videos I watched, you traded Poncho Pikachus for some, it looked like, I think it was like Gym Heroes cards. It was the Misty and the Brock.
Oh yeah, the first ed Misty Rock. I have those in PSA 9 still.
Yeah. Oh, so those both graded 9s. I know you
Yep.
were hoping they were 10s, but what did you trade for those?
It might have been my extra Rayquaza set. So
Okay.
I had graded a PSA 10 of the Rayquaza and Shiny Rayquaza ponchos, and then I bought another set online. And when I got them, I knew they weren't 10s. And so I believe I found someone on Reddit that I traded with who had the Misty, the Brock. They might have had a couple of other things. It was like a younger kid too, and he was like very much in the hustle of, all he was doing was trying to like trade up for stuff. And so I think I traded him maybe those Rayquaza ponchos for a couple of Watsy hollows.
Yeah, but looking back on those, I bet you wish you could have those ponchos back.
Yeah. Those I would have never guessed it. I mean, most of them were really cheap. I mean, I'm really surprised. I guess I'm not surprised. I mean, they were pretty niche, and they were one of those, like, you had to buy them from the Pokemon Center in Japan, like the promo box or whatever. But yeah, those are definitely, and I mean, I still have a PSA 10 set, so I can't be too sad, but it'd be nice to have a couple of copies to at their current value at least. So
Yeah. And right before we leave, can I just ask you one question? Because I did hear you mention it earlier in the video, and well, you're talking like maybe people are talking about like some of the reasons these card prices are going up is for China, but not that question. But what do you think about Chinese sealed product? Have you been, or just Chinese cards in general? And now that they went from traditional Chinese to what is it called? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I don't know what it's called, but I do know what you mean. I haven't had any interest personally. The only product I almost bought was like that 25th anniversary gold box,
Yep.
and that's because it was a lot cheaper than the Japanese one. But my absolute preference would be to get a Japanese box of that. The only Chinese card I have is the Guzma because it is a exclusive art to Japan and China.
Yeah.
And the Japanese one is way more expensive. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as Chinese cards. I would get the Lily, I'd get the Acerola, all of those ones that in Japanese are, 10x or whatever they might be and aren't available in English. So I haven't really looked too much into what's available. I know that they kind of started a couple years back as far as the sets they're releasing. I think from like an investment or even a business perspective, there's probably some opportunity there that, it's been through COVID. It's been a couple years now since stuff like Burning Shadows was released and the full art Rainbow Charizard that people might see again and be like, oh, I forgot about that. Or that's something I always wanted. And now's my chance because the English copy or the Japanese copy is just outside of my range. It's an opportunity to own the art in a more economically feasible way that could be some good opportunity for folks in the future.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm curious to see how the Chinese market plays out. Like, I know there's a lot of options, Korean stuff like this, and I just never even bothered those. But the Chinese market's it's sparking my interest right now. So, but
Yeah.
all right, Coop, man. I appreciate you, dude. I'm
Yeah.
so
Thanks
happy we
again.
got to meet in Hartford. This has been great.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I'll just tell the folks watching. So me and you were like some of the only people asking questions at
Yeah,
the panel. And PK, you had some good questions. And then I think your wife scare in the sense of you had to turn your phone off was something I was like, I gotta ask if this guy's, what's going on with all this because you had to step out for a sec. But really glad we sparked up a discussion and had a chance to meet. And it's led to this, right? This is part of the hobby of making those personal connections and getting to experience new things because you kind of put yourself out there. So
yeah, definitely. I think that's the toughest thing too and I tell everybody, you just got to take that first step. And sometimes that first step is just hopping on a live or hopping on E4 and like just chatting or hopping in a voice chat or just doing that. And it just that one step. And then eventually you keep doing more and more steps till eventually you start having lives like this and 70 people tune in to watch, which is, still to this day amazes me. So,
yeah, awesome. Well, next time we do it, we'll do it over a beer or something and
oh,
see how
definitely,
the
man.
conversation goes.
All right, man. Well, Coop,
Awesome.
I appreciate you. I'm glad I can now officially call you a friend. So
Yeah, absolutely.
this has been
Awesome.
awesome, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks
And
so much.
yeah, and for everybody out there watching this video, if you guys could do me one solid, again, down in the description below is a link to both Coop's YouTube channel and Coop's Instagram. I just recommend everybody out there, if you want to see awesome cards, click on his Instagram and just scroll. You're going to scroll for days. Awesome collection, awesome cards. And the deeper you go into it, you can watch Coop grow as you go back. It is a awesome experience. But with that said, guys, I appreciate you. I know I could speak for Coop. He appreciates you guys too. And with that said, we'll catch you on the next video.
See ya.